let me say, I think there's been a very rich discussion here of both the rationale for why we ought to be taxing the super rich. It's obvious. You don't need to have a Nobel Prize to figure that out. And that, in fact, the world that we have today taxes them at a lower rate than ordinary people when they should be taxed at a higher rate. So that argument is obvious. The second question often is, why is this a global issue, not just a local issue? And I think the Minister of Finance from Chile brought out one really important aspect of this. It helps create, you might say, global social norms. That was what the SDGs were about, creating global social norms. What is a global social contract? What we should expect in a civilized society. And to me, that's one of the reasons why it's so important that the G20 has taken this up and why it's been taken up here in Seville. But the second reason is that we are part of a global world. The world back when the UK had to deal with Switzerland was just a foreshadowing of what has happened with globalization. We've created tax havens around the world. When I say we've created them, they are the creation of the global community. We could have regulated them. We could have taken other actions. We allow them to exist. And when I say we, why are they there? Well, there are some special interests who benefit from them, and I'll come back to that in a second. So one of the things that is so important about the Seville action platform is that it has concrete measures. And there are lots of concrete measures that can be taken to deal with the tax avoidance that globalization has facilitated. Issues about transparency, issues about global registry. There are many particular things that can be done that actually make, I don't want to say tax avoidance impossible, but at least make it much more difficult. So it's an impediment and makes detection of it easier. Let me, before coming to a full answer to your question, point out that while there's been a lot of progress that I'll describe in a second, there are some forces going in the other direction. The first is that globalization has opened up new opportunities for tax avoidance that are just, the tax lawyers will find the example of the digital taxes of Apple using Ireland to move all the profits they made in Europe to Ireland, and then using a very special provision of Irish law that said if an Irish subsidiary was controlled from somewhere else, which was Silicon Valley, they didn't have to pay taxes in Ireland. So they moved all their money and said it was due to Ireland, but in Ireland they said it was due to Silicon Valley, and in that way avoided taxes almost completely. So that's the wonders of globalization, but that is what has to be counteracted by specific measures. As I said, there are some, not a surprise that the people at the top have money to lobby not to be taxed, have money to hire high-priced lawyers to figure out these complexities to avoid tax. When people talk about waste in the government, I look at it systemically. Is that the best use of our talent to have people figure out how not to pay taxes? The private sector is wasting money. They're hiring from a social point of view. They're wasting money that could have been spent to make sure that people don't die in Africa or in other developing countries on the object simply not paying their fair share of taxes. And that's why this agenda of taxing the super rich is so important. It's not, but also one of the other headwinds that the world is facing right now is Trump. I know one isn't supposed to say that in polite circles, but he's destroyed politeness as even a verb, as a word. So the point I think the rest of the world has to remember is that the U.S. is only 20%, less than 20% of global GDP. Europe, as a market, is larger than the U.S. If it doesn't stick together, each country is much smaller. But Europe as a whole is a bigger economy than the U.S. Why should, in the bargaining about whether Europe should have access to American markets versus America having access to EU markets, why shouldn't the upper hand be in Europe? It's a bigger market. But Europe hasn't acted that way. China stood up. And what we saw when China stood up and said, we're not going to give in, what we saw is what the word, I don't know if many of you know, called taco. Trump always caves in, cops out. So the point is that if Europe stands up, the rest of the world stands up, I think it will make a difference. So let me come to the final part and answer your question. I've been really energized, so optimistic because of what happened first in the G20 in Brazil. That this issue that we never thought would make the top of the agenda made it onto the agenda. And one of the reasons it made onto the agenda was President Lula was very much aware of the interaction between global social norms and Brazilian social norms, and that putting it on the agenda would actually help the Brazilian agenda. And now I'm actually also so pleased that South Africa has made a commitment to take it up. And then the broad coalition of the willing, 100, almost the entire world, with one exception, has gotten together at Seville and made a commitment on this issue. And I have to congratulate Spain for helping engineer this, but it reflects the sentiment of the entire world. I think that's a major step forward. And with the Brazilian, Spanish, and now Chilean, and joining on the civilian action platform for dealing with the taxation of the super rich, I think this provides a kind of momentum going forward after Seville. Here we've been talking about this as a launch pad, and I think it provides a momentum to keep this agenda going forward, which I think is so important, not because it's just going after social, taxing the rich in the rich countries, but because countries need the money. The world needs the money in order to address the problem of poverty, health, education, growth in the developing world.
Thank you so much.